At the cost of my home, I wonder how long it'll take to rebuild. I'll have to look out for home listings soon.
Hey everyone! Finding a house isn't as easy as it seems. Especially when you bet your savings that a half-baked collaboration like this would be a breakout success. Anyway, I'm now in the shelter for the homeless in transition. Nothing much to do, so I guess it's time to read. The Rise of Ultraman is a comic book. The Ultraman don't move? It is a 5-issue limited comic book series published by Marvel Entertainment in collaboration with Tsuburaya Productions. You know Marvel, James Bond, Optimus Prime. The series is co-written by Kyle Higgins and Matt Groom, with art and character designs by Francesco Manna with Michael Cho and Gurihiru. It started when Danny Simon of the licensing group, one of Tsuburaya's partners in the United States of America, approached Tsuburaya to broker the license to create comic books. Eventually, a deal with Marvel Comics was made and the collaboration was announced at Tokyo Comic Con 2019, where they announced the issues will be released in 2020. The comics were to be supervised by Starlight Runner Entertainment, basically Tsuburaya's consultant for the Western market. And of course, all final approval of all media was by Tsuburaya Productions themselves. Later on, we got more details on the project, such as the writers and the artists. Kyle Higgins and Matt Groom co-authored The Rise of Ultraman. Among the Toku community, Kyle Higgins was known for his work on the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comic. I don't know about anything other than Ultraman, but from what I've seen, the comic was pretty well received. Matt Groom had previously worked on his creator-owned story Self-Made. According to Matt Groom himself, from a Reddit Ask Me Anything, Kyle wanted Matt to co-write the work, as they have worked together before, and Kyle knew that Matt would have some ideas for the series. The art, penciling and inking was mainly done by Francesco Manna, and I think this guy's art is amazing, no doubt. Also, there wasn't much worry about the art thanks to Alex Ross' gorgeous artwork that was often used for promotion and was also used for the cover. However, some fans were pretty worried about this attempt at an original Ultraman reimagining by a Western studio because, to be fair, there hasn't exactly been a good track record for American adaptations of Japanese media, not just for Ultraman of course. But just as an example from the Ultra series was Ultraman Powered, which are admittedly just okay at best and have fight scenes that haunt my nightmares. I do recall there being concerns of them making Ultraman into a typical Western superhero story. Now, I'm not trying to be elitist or anything here, but Ultraman isn't a superhero in the normal sense. The series, before New Generation of course, has more in common with romps like Godzilla compared to its peers in the weekly Toku Fair, Kamen Rider and Super Sentai, and even less in common with heroes like Batman or Superman. Basically, the fans don't want the Ultraman adaptation to be another brooding story about what it means to be a hero or something like some other stories of the superhero genre. Ultraman should focus on mysteries, sci-fi, and his benevolence. At least, that's what some people think. Hey, what do I know? I've never read a comic in my life. What the heck is a Spider-Man? Alright, that's enough chit-chat. Let's start browsing paper. It was kind of a reimagining of the 1966 show, with plenty of references to the original. The designs were honestly amazing, but the fight scenes were criminal, and oh damn it, that was Ultraman Powered. Before we go on, spoiler galore for The Rise of Ultraman ahead. Also of note that this isn't really a full in-depth review, but more of my thoughts and opinions that I just want to share. Briefly, The Rise of Ultraman tells the story of Kiki Fuji, a new recruit of the Science Patrol, and Shin Hayata, who has not yet been accepted into the organization. They encounter some mysterious kaiju and eventually encounter Ultraman himself, which Hayata, naturally, merges with. I'm gonna say this out of the gate, I like The Rise of Ultraman. I feel its plot is pretty engaging and unique. Let me go over what I liked about it. First of all, I really like that this isn't just a repeat of the original series, but instead it's a completely new story that only reuses elements from the franchise, yet has its own ideas to expand upon. Most notably the Science Patrol, which is now a unit that works covertly and dealing with kaiju unbeknownst to the public, reminds me of the Night Raiders from Ultraman Nexus. They act discreetly because monsters come from minus energy, a force powered by fear. So if the public does know about the existence of kaiju, the fears will cause kaiju to appear more rampantly. Another cool twist of this comic is the reversal of Ultraman and Ultra 7. Here, instead of Ultraman, Ultra 7 was the first one to come down to Earth and crash into a human, that human being Dan Moroboshi. It's also not shy to use stuff that's well integrated into the Ultra lore, such as the origin of the Plasma Spark, minus energy, cameos from Taro and AT, and some more neat Easter eggs here and there. An important device in the story is the usage of the K-Rays, which are the Science Patrol's main weapons of dealing with kaiju. The weapon also became one of the central mysteries regarding what it actually does. I love how its revelation ties many things together. The K-Rays actually don't destroy kaiju, but send them to a kaiju limbo, a trippy alternate dimension where monsters go through before they go to the monster graveyard. However, merely sending them here will eventually cause the place to overflow, a truth that Professor Nikaido had discovered, and its instability prompted Ultraman to survey the situation. I think the story and its mystery was really satisfying and a unique take on the kaiju threat to humanity. And another cool thing is that, in incredibly simplified words, the rise of Ultraman plays out like an extended and developed first episode of the 1966 Ultraman. It all started with a plane crash, the merging of two lives, and Ultraman finally grows gigantic in the climax as he faces off against Bemular. Next, the character of Ultraman himself has been revised. Let's be honest, our main universe man doesn't have much in terms of personality, and he doesn't even have as many relations to other characters like Seven, Taro or Ace does for us to see more of his personality. However, when describing him, I and some others may think of words like benevolent and heroic, maybe sadistic, but that's beside the point. Here, the writers have done a good job at portraying Ultraman as what he always was meant to be, a mysterious alien whose species had far transcended our own. I feel that nowadays this aspect of the Ultraman has been lost, with more and more Ultraman actually being more human-like. They are aliens first and foremost, and while they evolved from a species very similar to humans, they and their culture shouldn't be so similar to humans because they're not. Oh, and Ultraman's not exactly buddy-buddy with Hayata here, but is always going for the best course of action, which I really like. And of course, the art is absolutely beautiful, whether it be the characters in motion, the new takes on kaiju, and even all the cover arts. They're all just so nice, I'd pin them on the wall if I had a home. So I waited for all issues to be released before I checked it out, and I'm glad I did. There's 5 issues telling one compact story. Each issue was released a month apart from each other. Ultraman shows usually rely on the battle between Ultraman and the enemy to cap off an episode. However, that's not really the case with each of the issues of the comic. For example, in the first issue, its climax is the discovery of Ultraman and Hayata approaching him, which might be pretty disappointing for all the build-up from before. I think this is why some of the most common criticisms of this comic is that it feels very slow. Think of it as watching the plot of one episode of Ultraman over the course of 5 months. However, when you read the whole thing at once, as it's meant to be, you get the most fulfillment and the satisfying climax of the giant fight. Sure, there are lots of action-packed sequences and even Ultraman fighting himself before this, but in Ultraman, the giant fights are more than just usual action sequences, but it acts as a very rewarding climax. As a whole issue, I do think it is paced pretty well. Another nitpick in my opinion is the human characters. I do like the characters, their role in the story, their personality, I think it's pretty fresh. However, I do think that it may have been better if they did not name them after characters from the original show, but make them totally new characters instead. With old names, there's the perception of the previous character, and it would take at least some time to dissociate with the original iteration. I'm sure the writers did this as a nice tribute to the original series, but it's a shame because these are entirely new characters with enough going for them to warrant having new names of their own. It isn't even set in the same time period as the original. Might just be me, but while I do like this guy, it would have been cooler if he wasn't Hayata. And something minor but it annoys me is that this was falsely advertised to have Ultraman facing off against Seven in a commercial, but it never happened in this issue, so it blows. So that was the rise of Ultraman. To be honest, I didn't really expect much from this one, considering a lot of the opinions that I saw online were that it was just okay or nothing too amazing, but it's actually pretty good. With the advent of Tsuburaya Productions' increasingly aggressive foray into the Western market and trying their best to establish a big foothold over there, there are several opinions about this by the fanbase. Some are indifferent. Most are happy to see the brand expand and see more success. But there's also a notable portion that doesn't like the adaptation of Ultraman in the West. I'm not trying to call these people out or anything, or I'm not trying to call anyone out. It's perfectly okay to have opinions, and it's perfectly understandable too, considering a lot of American adaptations can stunk. I think it also comes down to the creators and the behind the scenes of the works. As I've mentioned before, this comic is supervised by Starlight Runner, and final supervision by Tsuburaya themselves. And again, according to Matt Groom on a recent Reddit Ask Me Anything, they're keen on making sure the message of Ultraman is communicated to the audience. Even the writers of The Rise of Ultraman are on board with this and had wanted to convey the message as well. What I'm saying is, instead of thinking of new adaptations as bad stuff, let's give the new creators a chance, especially since we know for a fact that they have Tsuburaya's creative influence on the direction of the work. But of course, if criticism is due, then that should be given so that creatives don't get complacent and don't make nonsense with the IP. Anyway, I look forward to the sequel comic The Trials of Ultraman, which is going to be collected into a physical copy soon. I prefer to buy things if I can get a physical copy of it, which is why when someone offered me to buy a house online, I said no, and now I have to live in a box!